of 132 million pounds and made up almost half of what was caught in Maine. Before this boom, fishermen here caught everything from herring and mussels to scallops.
Lobster became such a financially productive activity during the boom of our landings, where most fishermen focused exclusively on lobster.
In the 2010s, going all in on lobster seemed like a safe bet for fishermen. They could earn more than any other species, and lobster's price stayed high despite soaring supply.
I think there's always risk associated with putting all of your eggs in one basket, and that's essentially the situation we've created.
But now the population is shifting again, farther offshore. Lobster eggs in warming waters inshore aren't surviving at the rates that ones in cooler waters are. Because the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 99% of the world's oceans, people have been worried what happened in New York and New England would happen here. But scientist Kathy Mills says there's still hope.
We have conservation measures in place that are buffering some of the effects of warming temperatures.
Measures like maximum size limits introduced in the 1930s and V-notching in the 1940s.
The conservation measure to protect egg-bearing females is almost a century old.
These have helped slow lobster's decline off Maine. See how in the last few decades, the center of gravity hasn't moved as far as it did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s? Not only does Steve throw back lady lobsters, but his traps are also set up so small ones can escape.
So the kitchen is where the food is. You got two doorways in, and then this is the parlor back here where they're all hanging out after they eat. Every trap has 3, sometimes 4 vents. These vents are designed to let the lobsters out that aren't legal size.
While these catch limits in Maine have helped, they probably won't stop the population from shifting completely.
The population will not collapse. It will decline, but to levels that we've experienced in the past.
Like most scientists here, Kathy's team predicts the center of gravity will keep shifting north in the future. And as lobsters move offshore, so too do the lobstermen. Small boats like Steve's that stay close to the coastline are increasingly being replaced with big ones that go lobstering 30 miles out for days at a time. But big boats are an investment most young lobstermen can't afford. Even a small rig like this takes a lot of money to operate.
The traps and the buoys and the rope, probably looking at about $160,000 if everything was brand new. Am I worried about the younger generation? And I am, because we've done everything we can to keep a fishery for them. The stuff that we can't control, we can't control.
Yeah, I'm inbound, over. Yep, roger that, just checking.
On small boats, lobstermen like Steve and Dan will go out for just the morning and pull into the Portland dock around noon. They sell their catch to Luke's Lobster at $6.50 a pound for hard shell and $5.50 for soft shell, or ones that have recently molted. Ward Peck runs the tank room. His team grades the lobsters based on weight and quality as they come off the boats. Ones with 2 full-grown claws get a higher grade.
So you can tell this one lost this claw, so you wouldn't want to pay $50 for this on your plate.
They also sort them by the hardness of their shells. If you squeeze a soft shell, you can feel water inside because there's still room for the lobster to grow. That also means there's less meat. Those can only be sold to local markets before they spoil. A hard shell, though?
It's like a bullet. There's no water in here. The higher proportion of meat to shell in a hard shell lobster.
Hard shell lobsters will fetch a bit more because they survive longer and they can be exported out of the state.
Here's something that you would pay good money for at a Manhattan restaurant. It has a crusher claw, it has a pincher claw. The crusher claw is bigger, pincher claw is more narrow. 3-pound lobster, I would not want to get my finger in their crusher claw, that's for sure.
He's seen some pretty lobsters through all his years of grading.
This guy's more of an albino, and this guy is like the calico. He's albino and spots. When they're this color, they look prehistoric to me. Apparently, no matter what color they are when they're alive, once you boil them, they all turn red.
From here, Ward will drop them off at Luke's Lobsters restaurant next door, or send them to the company's processing facility, about 20 minutes away.
The first step is running it through a stunner.
Luke's Lobster wouldn't show us its stunner, but the machine could look something like this. It's a lethal electric shock, marketed as a quicker and more humane way to kill lobsters than boiling them alive. At the processing facility, we were able to catch up to the lobsters just after steaming. They go straight into a chiller to stop the cooking and bring them to a food-safe temperature of below 40 degrees.
We then break the lobster down into parts.
That's Luke Holden, a third-generation lobsterman and the founder of Luke's Lobster. Because of rising utilities and PPE costs, he says this processing facility actually loses him money.
It's definitely a really tough industry to make ends meet. There are less and less processors in the state of Maine every year.
He offsets the losses with the money he makes from his restaurants.
I'm a little bit stubborn in nature. This is the business that I love. I find like so much energy just being a seafood processor.
Workers dump out buckets of claws and knuckles onto these tables. These shellers move at lightning speeds, cracking open the claws and swiping out the meat.
It's amazing how competent those pickers are and how fast they can go.
In one shift, these pickers can shell 40,000 pounds of lobsters. This machine removes the small legs from the body. The company pulverizes the body meat into mince for its lobster bisque. But they don't waste those legs. They send them through this roller.
The leg meat is used for a lobster ravioli, our lobster cakes, our lobster mac and cheese.
All the shells get crushed into a powder that can then be used in fertilizer. At the back of the room, workers do a quality check of knuckle and claw meat
to make sure that there's no shell or cartilage before it ultimately gets packed up.
If it passes the check, the staff packs them into 2-pound bags. This machine vacuum seals them. Then they get a slow trip down this flash freezing machine, which can take less than 10 minutes to cool them down to -10 degrees. The majority of the state's lobsters are processed into parts like this. Some of these packs will go to partners like Whole Foods and Benihana. The rest head to Luke's Lobsters restaurants, where they're seeing a surge in demand.
When there's more demand for the finished goods, that trickles up to the fishermen, and that creates more economic value for the industry.
But this meat hasn't always been valuable. For most of recorded history, there were so many lobsters up and down the east coast of the US, they were considered a food of the poor. And they held that reputation for centuries. The legend goes in the 1900s, at a party hosted by the wealthy Rockefeller family, a lobster meant for the servants was served to the guests, and they loved it. Soon, overfishing made lobster scarce and expensive, cementing it as a luxury food in the US. The tail meat was especially popular. Luke's dad, Jeff, was the first licensed lobster processor in Maine, but in the 2000s, he couldn't sell the cooked knuckle and claw meat.
He had a freezer full of hundreds of thousands of pounds of cooked lobster meat that ultimately there was no strong market for.
When Luke moved to New York City for a job in banking, he couldn't find a good lobster roll. So he called up his dad, asking to buy the claw meat to start a lobster roll shop in Manhattan.
He was like, that's great. And he even offered us 90-day terms to get the business financing because it was just going to sit in his freezer anyways.
The first shack was a huge success, and they've since expanded to 35 locations worldwide.
Fast forward 15 years, the market is completely inversed. When we started Luke's in 2009, we were paying $14 a pound for cooked lobster meat. In the last 3 years, we've seen as high as $50 a pound. And I would say on average, it's in the high 30s. More demand.
The company opened its Portland, Maine restaurant in 2019.
I usually pack this cooler with about 120 pounds, and before lunch is even over, they will have gone through all 120 pounds.
Michael Tibbetts is the assistant kitchen manager, and he says the most popular dish is the lobster roll, loaded with knuckle and claw meat.
It's become a real iconic thing. We can sell over 800 lobster rolls a day. It's just a regular New England split top roll. It's our butter wheel right here. We do 3 Swipes of butter on both sides. Put it on the flat top. Weigh out 4 ounces of fresh lobster meat. Drizzle of butter, a little bit of secret seasoning, and that is the Luke's Lobster Roll.
As popularity for lobster dishes has jumped nationwide, so has Maine's dependency on this one crustacean.
Our overdependence on one fishery is going to always be scary, and it's always tenuous.
That's why Bree Warner launched Atlantic Sea Farms, a company that helps fishermen get into a different kind of business, kelp farming. Not only is seaweed getting more popular stateside, its harvest season is the opposite of lobsters.
We have all of this coastline. It's so protected, it's so nutrient dense. It's a perfect place to grow kelp. We have 4,000 boats that in the winter aren't doing a whole lot.
Kelp thrives in Maine's cold water.
So this is really good, healthy kelp right now. What you want to see is a nice dark olive color to it. You don't see any bare spots. You're getting several pounds each foot of line.
You obviously don't need to water them. No herbicides, no pesticides.
Atlantic Sea Farms grows the kelp seeds at this nursery.
Then we give it to our partner farmers for free. We help them find their lease, we help them with site selection, we help them with farm setup.
When Atlantic Sea Farms started out in 2018, the entire state of Maine harvested 53,000 pounds of farmed seaweed.
For the first year of Atlantic Sea Farms, we had 3 brave souls take on the risk of doing their own farms.
Flash forward to today, its 40 partner farmers harvested a record-breaking 1.3 million pounds in 2024, just in time to meet booming demand in the global seaweed market.
We haven't had to recruit anyone in years. The proof is in the pudding. The fishermen don't do things that don't make money for them.
Many are lobstermen, like Justin Papke.
Just looking at things we could do to diversify, take a couple eggs out of the lobster basket.
He considered oyster and mussel farming, but found kelp was a cheaper investment because he could use the same boat, ropes, and buoys as lobstering.
I had all these buoys just stacked up on the shore. It's like, well, they don't need to be on the shore. Maybe they could be making me money in the water. And kelp seemed to fit really well with lobstering in our season and our slow times.
It took Justin 3 years to get the license for his 8-acre farm.
The way we're set up, it kind of looks like an Olympic swimming pool. The kelp is on like a lane, except it's 7 feet below the surface.
Debris, like trees, can tangle in these lines, and big waves can move them.
We're not throwing things on land in nice rows. We're putting our nice rows in the water, and then Mother Nature throws hurricanes at you.
Justin's biggest expense were these moorings, or anchors, that hold down the kelp lines. They can cost a farmer as much as $50,000 for a 4-acre site.
Once the kelp starts to grow, it gets really heavy, so it's better to spend a little bit more and get something that won't move.
Justin can harvest 10,000 pounds a day on average during the season.
Slowly, as we're getting better at it, it's become more dependable, and now it's a part of our income stream.
For the past 5 years, Steve has also been harvesting kelp in the spring. He spent about $22,000 starting up his farm, but he says the investment was worth it.
There's a lot less expense with the kelp once you set the farm up. You haven't got nearly as much fuel burned, and you haven't got a $600 or $800 a day bait bill. I don't find myself nearly as tired at the end of the day of harvesting kelp as I do at the end of the day hauling traps.
After fishermen like Steve harvest their kelp, Atlantic Sea Farms buys it.
We design all of the products, and we turn it into value-added products for grocery stores.
From this factory, the company makes seaweed salad, burgers, smoothie cubes, and kimchi.
I got here some skinny kelp that was harvested by one of our partner farmers yesterday. These blades clearly are taller than I am. It's really good. We wash, shred it, and we'll blanch it. And then from there, that product will go to our fermentation room, and we use that as an ingredient.
The kelp ferments in gochujang, tamari, and gochugaru for 10 days and comes out looking like this. That's the spicy seaweed salad.
Here, they're just trying to make sure everything's mixed really well together. Some of that liquid would have settled while all the product was sitting.
Finally, workers scoop the salad into 15-ounce jars. This machine makes sure the lid is airtight.
We want to get those lids on there really secure. Because it is a live product, there still can be fermentation that's happening, so we don't want any air getting into those jars.
Each of these jars is traceable back to the exact farm it was pulled from. and at about $10 a piece, they can be more valuable than raw kelp. The company makes over 75,000 jars of fermented seaweed salad every year and sells them in thousands of stores across the U.S.
Our food system is so broken. It's making farmers poorer, the environment worse, and consumers less healthy. And what we're doing here on the coast of Maine to work with fishermen to diversify in the face of climate change with the most climate-friendly food on the planet, for me, that's very hopeful.
Studies show kelp sucks harmful nutrients like nitrogen out of the water, sequesters carbon dioxide from the air, and protects against coastal erosion. Even at Luke's Lobster, they're frying up these kelp burgers.
We're shifting all the time. Shifting doesn't scare me at all. If they can sell the product, we should be encouraging more fishermen to go out and harvest kelp.
So will kelp ever replace lobster? Probably not.
So kelp is not a silver bullet. Lobster's always going to be part of the fabric of Maine. We're very optimistic about a future that includes lobster and kelp and oysters and mussels, and ways that we can create a future where we can always be working on the water for generations to come.
What does it taste like?
Tastes like kelp. Of course. No, I don't know how to describe it. It'd be like describing lobster. What does lobster taste like? Lobster. I don't know.
Bali. Sun, surf, and spirituality. Cheap shopping and cold beer. A getaway paradise is now rapidly transforming. From holiday makers to digital nomads, from hotel stays to long-term villas, thousands of them rising up and reshaping the landscape of Indonesia's most famous island. Bali is going through a building boom.
You have a lot of celebrities coming to Bali. It's like the Asian Ibiza, so people love it.
The natural beauty that draws millions of admirers each year has also brought cashed-up foreign developers, determined to make Bali the world's playground. From extravagant mini-cities...
We're printing our bus stops with the 3D printer.
...to the plain absurd.
There's even a jacuzzi in the cockpit.
A building boom is pumping up Bali's economy, but not everyone is happy.
As a Balinese, how does that make you feel?
Well, they destroy the beauty of the island.
We've gotten some threats through some of the reporting that we've done.
What sort of threats?
Death threats.
The Bali many know and love is at a construction crossroads. Can the island of the gods maintain its roots and cultural charms amid overdevelopment and under-regulation? Riding a bike along the Uluwatu coast in Bali's south quickly reveals the changing face of this island.
If you haven't been to Bali for a while, it's pretty extraordinary what's going on here. Everywhere you look, it's clear this island is in the midst of an unprecedented property boom.
Signs of development are everywhere.
2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. Looks like 5 new villas here.
All offering dream investment opportunities.
12, 16, 24 villas and units on this one. Every time I come back to Bali, I am just shocked by how quickly things are changing here. It kind of feels like every second person on this island is selling their lot and cashing in.
Arthur Richard is the new face of the new Bali. Young, European and ambitious. The 26-year-old French real estate agent has been living and selling property here for 6 years. As a senior sales rep for one of Bali's fastest growing property companies, the Ukrainian-owned Alex Villas.
So are these the finishing touches?
Yes, absolutely. Now we're gonna go to a townhouse, so it's a 1-bedroom unit.
With 8 large-scale projects across the island, business has never been better.
So welcome to a 1-bedroom townhouse in Complex 5.
Oh wow, it's very modern.
It's very Instagrammable.
Instagrammable.
Yeah, Instagrammable. A lot of hashtag Bali real estate, hashtag Bali property.
Everything has to look good on Instagram for these villas?
100%. It's very important for us.
If I want to buy something like this in Bali, roughly, how much will it cost?
I guess now, based on 2024, it will be around 200,000 US dollars. Depends also on the quality of material.
200,000 US dollars?
Yeah.
That's all?
Yeah, that's all.
For a villa?
For a townhouse like this, yeah.
It doesn't sound, compared to other countries, it doesn't sound like much.
No, it's not too much, right? That's the beauty of Bali. You can really acquire like good properties at a reasonable price.
Alex Villas doesn't just build the villas, they make everything, from their own concrete to the furniture, even their own tissue boxes.
You have a lot of celebrities coming to Bali. It's like the Asian Ibiza at the moment. So people love it.
It's the Asian Ibiza?
Asian Ibiza, yeah.
Do people call Bali that?
I hear that quite a lot, yeah.
Some locals we've spoken to say that there's a land grab going on. Is that true?
Bali will always develop itself to welcome more and more tourism. We work with all the local communities, so they don't see it as a takeaway from them. They see it as an opportunity to develop their island.
There was a time when Bali wasn't developed. In the 1960s, it was a secret spot for surfers. By 68, a new international airport was unveiled. And by the 90s, a string of 5-star resorts made Bali the go-to destination. For a couple of years, COVID shut the island off from the world. Now, Bali's property market is making up for lost time. And it seems there's nothing particularly Balinese about it. One Russian developer recently put a 737 on a cliff top.
If you really want to spend the big bucks in Bali, this is what you get. A private 2-bedroom villa. It costs 4,000 US dollars a night. It comes with your own personal butler. Morning. Oh, this is the back of the plane, but there's nothing economy about this. You've got a shower, you've got your bath, and of course, a pretty good view.
Other developments have been accused of environmental destruction. Builders of this 116-room residence on the Uluwatu coast caused an entire limestone cliff face to collapse.
They did suspend this project for a little while, but now it's full steam ahead.
What is clear is that progress is outpacing infrastructure. In this part of Bali, there's no piped water or electricity. The roads here are poor, but that's not slowing demand. And it's not just the main island. 40 minutes boat ride away on Nusa Penida, I'm meeting Bali's most outspoken voice against excessive development.
1, 2, 3.
Nilu Jelantic is a political rock star and Bali senator.
Everybody seems to know you in Bali. Why does everybody greet you and take selfies with you?
Because they believe that I'm their hope. And people, they choose to come to me to share their sadness, to share their problems, to let me know that Bali is not all right.
Nilu has long taken up the fight over the appalling roads on this island. But today, she's more worried about the coastline.
This is the road going to Kelingking Beach. And Swastiastu sayang. And this is the everyday view. As you see, thousands of people come here to see the beauty of Kelingking Beach.
Kelingking Beach is a mecca for Instagrammers, once voted the most beautiful beach in the world. Most tourists stay at the top. Getting down isn't easy.
Yes, we need to go down that way, take a small path all the way, so...
Oh, down there?
Down there, so it will take maybe around 20-30 minutes to go down.
Oh, yeah.
To help get more people down to the beach, the local village has brought in a Chinese company to build this, a 182-metre high elevator and viewing platform that will soon tower over one of Indonesia's most beautiful beaches. A permanent addition to bring even more tourists to this Instagram hotspot. Some here support it because of the increased business it will bring, but not Nilu.
Would you, once it's built, would you ride on the glass elevator?
No, never.
Never?
Never.
That's how strongly you feel about it?
Never. I'm a very gratitude person when it comes to nature. So, no, not over my dead body, no.
Nilu sees the elevator as part of a broader problem in Bali, a build at all costs mentality by the politicians in charge.
It's so simple, it's so simple to take care of this island, but it has been over the years, and it's getting worse. It is not getting better, The rich are getting richer. My duty is to wake them up and to slap them in the face and to let them know you have a fucking job to do,
So, why am I suspended in the air on a bicycle above rice paddies? Well, this tourist attraction is actually one of the best ways to see what the property boom is doing to Bali's food bowl. This is Ubud, long seen as one of the most stunning and serene parts of Bali, and it's here where the property developers are really muscling in.
Ubud is rice country. The paddies here are among the most stunning sights in Bali. And for developers, they've become the #1 target. Building and selling villas with uninterrupted views of rice paddies is considered.
On the 20th of February.
As an independent festival, it's a risky game. It's not for the faint-hearted.
This is the first year we've properly sold out because there is such a demand for being in a field and people coming together. People have missed that.
You can share a real connection with an audience when there's someone live. There's nothing really like that.
This film is about the risky business of music festivals, about the people who run them and the people who rely on them, about how they survive in normal times and how they can survive the pandemic. Festivals are a multi-million-pound global industry, and 2019 was a record year. In the UK, nearly 1,000 festivals contributed $1.76 billion to the economy, supporting around 85,000 jobs. But in 2020, COVID brought it all to a halt. Glastonbury was one of the first to cancel, and it had a cascading effect. In 2021, organisers started out more hopeful. Alex Trenchard is the founder of Stand & Calling, an independent festival north of London. It's one of the first to attempt going ahead since the pandemic. But with hours to go, will he make it? Even now, he's making calls to suppliers.
Because of COVID, our suppliers are wanting more payment up front, but obviously because of COVID and uncertainty, our ticket agents are more nervous about extending funds. And so, I'll be making a lot of calls to suppliers, everyone's kind of having to take each other a bit on trust.
Even without a pandemic to contend with, festivals are a high-risk business. Alex, the son of Viscount Trenchard, was lucky. He was able to start up on land part-owned by his family.
The first time we put the festival on, it wasn't even a festival, it was a party for 500 people. And about 10 p.m, the headliner was on the lawn of the house here. And a gust of wind came and just blew the stage over into the fields with the headline act on it. That was the first time we tried to do live music. Didn't really know what we were doing.
Some of the major events like Latitude and British Summertime are owned by global live events companies like Live Nation and AEG. But other festivals like Stand & Calling remain fairly independent. No other company has a controlling stake in them. WOMAD was one of the pioneers. It started in the early 80s and aimed to bring world music to a Western audience.
Someone had the mad idea, well, let's create a festival, let's bring all those artists here, let's bring an audience here, and we will all be rich. That's not how the story ended. It was a financial disaster. I think WOMAD's gone bankrupt 3 times in its history. Not for a very long time, but the risks are huge. Everybody was making it up as they went along, and mistakes were made, but lessons were learned and triumphs were had.
There are many newer entrants to the market, like Strawberries and Cream, which started out as an independent festival too.
We were 21, 22, didn't know anything from the insurance side to the toilets to what it takes to build a festival site.
We just sold the tickets, and with that ticket money, we kind of guessed how much we could make on that. We could spend on the lineup and spend on fencing and that sort of thing. So it was that first jump was a big risk.
In the very first one, whilst the show was going on, some of the contractors realised they weren't going to get paid, so they started taking their stages down. Some of the artists then had to perform on the ground.
Alex took risks in the early days, and those risks led to jail in 2011. He'd used the company credit card from his employer Tesco to pay off hundreds of thousands of pounds of debt.
I naively thought that the more acts I'd book, the more people would come. It doesn't work like that. We were losing a lot of money and I didn't really know what to do. I started to use my company credit card to pay off the debt, thinking I'd pay it back one day, and of course that never happened because the festival lost more and more money, and eventually, after a couple of years, it all came to light. And that was a good thing. It allowed me to go to prison for 11 months and think about things.
His festival continued with tighter financial controls. The summer pingdemic is the latest threat. Headliner Arlo Parks has had to pull out, and self-isolation has forced hundreds of ticket holders to stay at home. Stand and Calling isn't one of the government's pandemic test events, so he's also had to go ahead without the usual festival cancellation insurance. But despite all that, the festival is about to open.
I walked up the hill to look down on the site, and I did have a moment. I did choke, and I couldn't quite believe it that we were about to open. And you know, some of the issues we've had today meant that we're not quite there. You know, certain people not being able to make it due to the pandemic, this kind of thing. But I think we are there. We're about to open. I can hear sound checks on Northern Meadow stage. And, hopefully the beer is flowing. People will put a smile on their face because God, we've needed it after the last 16 months. Did you see that?
I've trained all my life to serve the enemy. Serve me.
To go ahead is great for the 17,000 ticket holders, but it's essential for Alex's survival. And there are many more people that depend on festivals for a living, including the acts. Getting the lineup right is essential for ticket sales.
There's three types of artists. There's your headliners, then your acts that you think are going to break and become huge, but aren't when you book them in October. And then there's your heritage acts that have been a while for a few years. And our first thing we'll try and do is get a lineup out before Christmas, because the sooner you can get it out, the sooner you're out there, the more people know about you, what you're doing, and the more likely you are to sell tickets.
Nothing stays the same for too long anyway. It's all.
And for the bands themselves, performing live is all important. It's extremely difficult to make a living out of streaming, but festivals can be more lucrative than one-off shows, as well as a way to attract new fans.
Live work is my main income, so I do it all the time in various forms with various groups, not always with the same group, lots of different musicians and lots of different setups. So yeah, live work is my job. Each summer, we'll do different amounts of festivals. It would be a sad summer without it. Financially, I would say it's a sizable chunk, at least half.
For artists, live music is a crucial form of their revenues. Because of the rise of streaming and the way that digital music is now sold, they make often very little money actually out of their own music when it's sold to people. So instead, they're perhaps increasingly reliant on live music, and in particular festivals, where they get big numbers in order to make their money, and they can make big sums from playing these big festivals as well.
At Stand and Calling, alongside Hot Chip and Sister Sledge, are Bristol-based group Elder Island. Their talent manager is Ross Patel.
Because of the way that festivals are structured, often the fees are better from the festival than you would get from a headline show. So sometimes they can be 2 or 3 times the amount of money that you can make from a headline show. You're in amongst a lot of other artists, often associated with them, so there's an opportunity to discover new talent and to be discovered by the audiences that are there to see other artists perform.
I think that's the nice thing about festivals. You make new fans. People come to discover new things and they, will just stumble past you playing and be like, wow, what's this? Check it out, and then follow you, and then you've made a new fan, which is brilliant.
2 years ago, I made basically all of my money from live events in Iceland. And since COVID, I've made basically all of my money from non-live events. So I don't really know how touring and festivals and stuff like that is gonna play into my financials yet.
Also at risk when festivals suffer is the network of people working behind the scenes.
Festivals are a huge employer in the UK and around Europe. They employ all sorts of different people from the creative industries, but people who would often be working on, say, film sets and TV studio sets. It takes
all sorts of skill sets to make these things happen, whether that's, you know, trained medical staff or trained security staff through to the creative teams who make things look incredible and do the big decor pieces and the big set builds.
But also you have all the people selling, you know, the hot dogs, the burgers, the beers, the T-shirts. These are all important parts of local economy.
On a festival about the size of Standing Crawling, which is 17,000 capacity, we have up to about 1,500 staff, guests and performers. Building the show, currently we are at about 220 people on site. As you can imagine, the larger the shows, the bigger the teams become to build them.
They employ tens of thousands of people every year, particularly those in part-time work. For them, they depend on their livelihood and generate a lot of money.
In fact, it's estimated that a 5,000 capacity festival is worth around £1.1 million to the local area. A 110,000 capacity festival can be worth over £27 million. Production manager Ian Mackey says in the summertime he works full-time on festivals and he surrounds himself with people he can count on. COVID hit hard.
It's not like a normal job. They're your friends, you look after each other. It's different, it's a family. It was really tough. I had to let staff go, I had to sack people, and it was horrific. I hated doing it, you know. It was tough. I kept paying them for a short time, from 2020, for about 6 months I managed to keep paying them. But eventually I just had to stop and they had to go and find other work. They went driving trucks, driving Amazon, finding something else to do, you know. But we're still here, just, you know, just. If we hadn't received any grants, which we got one fairly modest grant, I wouldn't still be in business.
To break into profit, festivals are also dependent on their cut from on-site vendors, including food and drink. Will Davis says organisers take a 30 to 35% cut, so margins are tight.
In the festival season, we make our money for the year. So we usually work through from May through till late September. Is kind of it is definitely our festival season. So every weekend it's event into event into event, and it's delightful to work. I love it. If festival season didn't happen this year, then I really couldn't see a way into next year. And maybe ever doing a festival again, to be honest.
With tight margins, organisers are always looking to reduce risk.
I would say once every few years you have a triumphant year, and that goes really well, and that sets you up for the next 2 or 3 years. And then the next 2 or 4 years you're living hand to mouth, because it doesn't always go according to plan.
It is an incredibly risky business model. The entire business is concentrated, you know, into year-round planning for a 3-day event. And we know that the average cost is over £6 million.
Those 3 big revenue generators, the tickets, the sponsorship and the bar money are very variable, and you can never guarantee them.
The profit sits in the food and the beer and all the merch. So it's a very narrow line between profit and loss in the industry. And the bulk of all that cost goes on making the event possible.
Every person you bring in above break even, you're doing really well. But equally, because of that, every person you're below break even, you can equally do very badly. It's very finite margins, which is why most players in the market are part of larger organisations.
For Alex, reducing risk has meant letting a larger events business, Broadwick Live, take a small stake in Standing Crawling. WOMAD spreads the risk by holding festivals around the world. And last year, Strawberries and Cream integrated with a subsidiary of Sony Music.
It's really changed the kind of dynamic of, you know, how we operate as a company. Obviously, we're still kind of, you know, frugal and move like an independent in many ways, but you have kind of the confidence, which I think is the key, you know, to make the decisions that really move the needle.
One thing organisers rely on is festival insurance. It includes protection against cancellation because of bad weather. But during the pandemic, the insurance market collapsed, and the UK government wasn't stepping in with a backstop.
What's happened is there is this huge reticence, this inability to write communicable disease COVID cover on standard cancellation policies because there have been such massive losses. To have your event cancelled 2 or 3 days before, you could be 90% of your cost, and that could bankrupt you.
Normally it'll be full of people. We can pack the space in certain areas, make the space wide in other areas, so you create the movement and flow and the colour and the excitement. It feels very sad to be here without all of that going on, I have to say. We could have taken the risk to happen this year, but the risk was that if it failed, that's it. WOMAD's finished.
Government's view was that they would look at it once festivals were operational, but that misses the point of being able to plan with confidence, and that's why you've seen so many cancellations.
2021 was this strange year. As such, anyone who had a festival lined up was in this sort of limbo of not knowing whether or not their festival could go ahead or not, whether or not the government would support them or not, whether or not they're getting insurance or not. For many, they decided not to take the risk.
One of the hardest parts of that for me was phoning up contractors who had stood by us and saying, look, we have to pull, we can't go ahead. Legally, we can't go ahead. Financially, we can't go ahead. And they said, well, that's us, we're finished. We're closing, we can't go on.
For Alex, after cancelling in 2020, he decided he had to go ahead this year, even without insurance.
I mean, if we went down now, it would be a huge question mark. I'm not sure we would recover. But then again, if we hadn't continued to push forward, the festival business is something that needs to happen. If it doesn't happen for a while, it's hard to bring it back. It's hard to bring the people back. It's a creative undertaking. You need to keep your people through that. Otherwise, it's just a stage in the field.
In early August, late in the season, the UK government did finally agree to become insurer of last resort for festivals. It had come too late for Alex, who was insured against cancellation for extreme bad weather, but not COVID. At Stand-in Calling, the fans are expected to arrive with proof of negative tests. What's been hard is dealing with requests for refunds from people who didn't come, not because of positive tests, but because they decided they just didn't want to take the risk. Alex thinks it's gone well.
The queues were very, very smooth. The app caused about 120 positive cases that could have made it into the show. It's good to know we have a system that worked really well.
But on Sunday afternoon, the site was hit by a lightning storm and torrential rain.
We got to about 7 p.m. when we decided that the flooding was making things too unsafe to continue. We then made the decision to stop the show, which was heartbreaking, especially after 2 years of everything that we've been working on. But at the same time, you've got to look on the positives, and at least it happened on the Sunday night and not on the Friday night.
He is crossing his fingers that many disappointed ticket holders will be willing to hold on until 2022.
That's one of the things that COVID has created, is a sort of spirit of working together, and then people try and understand, our position, and we try and understand theirs. So the rollover works well, and that way we get to celebrate with them next year.
While some have survived the pandemic so far, others won't return.
I think there's going to be a big labour shortage and a big skills gap. A lot of people have taken either work in other industries and aren't coming back to festivals and events.
Most people aren't on a salary, so they don't have that wage security like other industries. And I hope that after that changes, because when the gig stops, I know people that are going hungry after 2 months, and that's terrible.
I was able to keep those things, which saved a lot of stress financially for me. Yeah, I think we will have maybe lost some great musicians because they won't have been able to adapt, and they won't have been able to find a way to make it work.
But where there is music, there is hope.
I think the future half looks bright because people will always love live music and live events, and people want to be part of things, and I think the demand will still be there.
It seems the risky business of festivals proves that sometimes it's about the love, and not so much about the money.
Well, I'm going to spend a week putting everything back together. My kids go back to school in September, and that's when we'll start planning for Stand and Calling 2022.
So like a long time ago, I did a video about The Maze Runner, which was one of the biggest things ever in like the mid-2010s. I mean, come on, dystopian YA movies with absurdly chiseled, dark-haired hot guys. I mean, that was popping up like you would not believe. So after getting somewhat sidetracked by other very important things like every Despicable Me movie for some reason, it's finally time to head back into the maze and see what old Thomas and friends are getting up to this time with Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials, which came out in 2015 to rave reviews. So last time on The Maze Runner, we found out that all of this was an experiment to study the brains of these kids who were immune to this like deadly virus that wiped out almost all of humanity. And the best way to do this, of course, is to make them fight giant demon robot spiders. Perhaps a tad overzealous, but I admire these museums. So they finally cracked the code and solved the puzzle, and they escaped to find out that the leader, Dr. Goat Lady, has been robloxed by some rebels. And these rebels happen to show up at a very convenient time to rescue the kids from whatever this is.
I wasn't expecting so many survivors, so the more the merrier. Thomas continues to succumb and compress, and for now, they seem to have taken the bait. It's time now to begin phase 2.
And this sets off the beginning of Maze Runner. So, come along, kids. Let's take a walk and check it out. But before that, really quick, this video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN is an app and browser extension that lets you change your IP address to be pretty much anywhere in the world you want. Now, what this means for you is it protects you from websites and other users trying to snoop on what you're doing and from where. Maybe your country has some like weird, strict content censoring laws, or you just don't want people to randomly hack your account. Well, Surfshark VPN can help you with all of that. But it also has a lot of very practical day-to-day uses, like allowing you to watch the Netflix libraries from almost any country. Fun fact, Slovakia has by far the highest number of movies and TV shows you can watch, with over 400 titles compared to 5,800 in the US. Now all you gotta do is just install Surfshark VPN and tell it to put your IP address in Slovakia, and there you go. You've access to an extra 100 titles. So Japan and Taiwan are the biggest anime libraries. So using Surfshark VPN, you can have access to all of that. Or in the reverse, if you're traveling away from your country, you want to stay up to date on the show you're watching or whatever, you can use Surfshark VPN to put your IP address in your home country, and then wham bam bibbidi-bow, there you go. It's really easy to sign up and install. It only costs $2.49 per month with a 2-year subscription, so it barely costs you anything, really, and gives you access to all of this. And get this, you can use a single subscription on an unlimited number of devices. So let's say you and 4 other family members don't want to pitch in on one subscription. That means you get all of this for 50 cents a month. So click my link down below. You're gonna get 4 extra months added to your subscription. So click my link and sign up today. Okay, back to the show.
Don't worry.
You kids doing all right? Littlefinger from Game of Thrones? Well, I think we should definitely trust him.
Call me Mr. Jans. I run this place.
For us, it is a sanctuary, safe from the horrors of the outside world. You all should think of it as a way station, kind of a home between homes. Watch yourselves.
So this place is some kind of facility where they take all the kids who've escaped the maze. But turns out there's a lot more going on here than they thought.
It's on.
Hey, Nina, what's going on? We weren't the only maze.
Big loud explosion, and these guys came out of nowhere. Started shooting up the place.
That's right, Thomas. Turns out none of you were actually that special after all. This kind of reminds me back when I was a kid and I was watching the end of Digimon. Like, the whole show up to that point was about the 8 Digidestined kids who were saving the world or whatever. But then at the end, it's like, ha, psych, actually there's thousands of Digidestined. And actually, you're not that special, really. Also this part.
My deal. What do you guys want to play?
How about strip club?
Yeah, some boy named Ty's on the phone for your friend Kari.
Like, this kind of removes a lot of the tension here about, like, these main kids specifically running and fighting for their lives, because it turns out there's, like, hundreds of other kids in dozens of mazes. And each maze has a totally different experimental setting.
How long? The kid over there, he's been here the longest. Almost a week.
These mazes are nothing to do.
Dude, can you imagine having an entire maze glade of only girls? I mean, can you just think of how supportive and orderly the whole thing would be? They'd solve the maze in 3 days and have a full PowerPoint presentation afterwards. Women, am I right? Like in the first movie, it's like, hey, this idiot doesn't even know his own name. Let's kill him. But then the girl maze is probably like, oh, what's that? You don't remember your name? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Anyway, so this guy named Jansen, by the way, he takes Thomas into an interrogation room and wants to ask him some questions, but ultimately lead nowhere.
Well, I won't take up too much of your time. What do you remember about Wicked?
Defying gravity! But you know, like, if your company's named Wicked, like, what are you even doing? Alright, everyone, welcome to the semi-annual conference for the League of Shadow Evil Darkness for kicking puppies and making children starve, but we are, in fact, actually the good guys, okay? I swear, trust me. The committee would like to recognize Ricardo Grande as our minutes taker this evening.
Whose side are you on?
I remember I used to work for Wicked. I remember that they sent me to the maze.
Anyway, so every day, about 10 or so kids get called up during dinner and they get taken away to who knows.
Connor. Evelyn. Squiggy. All right, settle down.
Oh, no, it's like holes. They're just using everyone's gamer tags now. All right, listen up. Barf Bag, Armpit, Zigzag, Giggly Mushroom 7, Step on Me, Tony the Tiger 25, Pixar Mom X __X, and Goku Spirit Bong. Yes, very clever. Anyway, so Thomas and friends don't get called, so they go to bed. But that night, this kid named Ares, he takes Thomas through like the largest, most heavily fortified air ducts I've ever seen, because he wants to show him something a little interesting. Watch. Wait a minute, a movie about teenagers where the adult can't be trusted. That's just crazy. Now, of course, Thomas wants to know what's going on inside that room, so he pretends to fight the guard so he can steal the bag. Then he sneaks back through the air duct and goes into that mystery room, and you'll never guess what's in it. Just kidding, it's actually pretty awesome. So what they find out is that these are the kids who've been taken away during dinner, and they're hooked up to these machines to be, like, drained or something. And naturally, Thomas is like, that's weird. But right then, Jansen walks in and starts having a Zoom call with a certain special little someone.
Good evening, Dr. Page. Lovely to see you again. Although I admit I wasn't expecting to hear from you quite so soon.
Change of plans, Jansen. I'll be around a little sooner than expected. First thing tomorrow.
Oh my goodness, what's that? Adults are liars. It's kind of like that moment in every kid's life when you discover that your parents had this like insane lore backstory that they never told you, but then they ground you for getting a C on your math test. Like, yeah, okay, Mom. But then this whole Zoom call thing starts taking a crazy turn.
I just received word. I want all the remaining subjects sedated and prepped for harvest by the time I arrive.
I'd suggest we start with the most recent arrivals.
Just get it done.
Now, upon hearing this, Thomas thinks that it maybe, sorta, kinda might be time to leave. So he gathers up all of his friends, including a couple new kids who should probably not get too attached to, and through the titanium reinforced air ducts that can somehow hold like 10 people, they manage to escape the facility and into what everyone calls the Scorch. And this is about the point where the movie just like totally turns into a generic zombie action movie. Like they go into this old abandoned shopping mall, and inside of it, it's a bunch of zombones who've been infected with the flare. Don't let flare-ups stop you from living the life you never wanted. From using stupid acronyms in everyday conversation like KPI or EOD, to telling your cousin that, yeah, you know, that one guy did get big on SoundCloud, so you probably will too. All the way to pretending to laugh at a meme your coworker sent you, because if you don't, he'll just send you another one anyway. Take back your life and say goodbye to flare-ups with Maisonettes.
What the hell is that thing?
And one of the kids gets like scratched and bitten and therefore infected, which like, I thought the whole point of this is that they're immune and their brain enzymes or whatever are the cure for all this, but then just kidding, they can totally turn into zombies anyway? So most of the movie's just them going from set piece to set piece where they escape the facility into the shopping mall, and then they go into a desert where they walk during the daytime like idiots. Yeah, sure is hot, huh? Maybe you could have walked at night. You ever thought of that? But in the middle of all this, Thomas has a very interesting conversation with Teresa.
I remember why we were there. We thought we could fix all this. I think we should go back.
After everything they've done to us.
It's not that simple.
Yeah, I think it is that simple.
No, you don't understand.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem, Teresa. Let's just circle back on this incredibly important sounding conversation first chance we get, am I right? But then they walk for days and days, and then they meet another human faction who has secrets. And never at any point during all of this did Teresa think it was a good idea to be like, hey, remember the conversation we had earlier that was like the key to the entire plot of the series? What if we did that again? Anyway, so after escaping a lightning storm in which Minho gets struck, that's why his hair is always sticking up like that. Then they meet that one guy from Breaking Bad and his adopted daughter, I think, who they think are part of this rebel faction called the Right Arm. But actually, they're just bounty hunters looking to sell kids to Wicked.
Do you ever get the feeling the whole world's against you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much been my entire personality since I was like 14, so by all means, please continue.